weekends.
Side hustle.
And for over 7 years, Gary co-hosted the Polite Society podcast, a weekly discussion covering legislation, news, and practical information important to all in the firearm community. In addition to his nationwide platform, Gary served as the Illinois State Rifle Association's Northwest Suburban Town Hall chairman. So Gary will be talking tonight about his upcoming plans for running for office and anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've met most of you, at least once. So I mean, I've been coming to the meetings for years now. So I mean, I think most of you know my story. I just wanted to kind of go over it in a little personal detail. Like she said, the two county chairs that 66 was in asked me to fill in when Skillicorn resigned. And I don't know about you guys, I was very disappointed at him at the end of his run. He really, I worked really, really hard to help him get into office, and I knew him before he was in office, and I don't know what happened to him. I was very disappointed. So I got a taste of it, got to see how the sausage is made, and it's brutal, and there's not enough people willing to do it. So I decided that I had the thick enough skin to be able to stand up and put that fight. So here I am, I'm head in hand. I'm going to be running for the State House. As you know, they have redrawn the maps, and districts, they drew me out of my district, which I think I can just assume that means I did a good job for us, right? Drew me out of the district, so when they do the census redraw, you can run in any district that's your old district or your new district, something like that. So that kind of opens up the options for me. I don't have to live in the district. I have to move within a year of winning a seat. So I don't know exactly what district I'm going to be in because they drew me into one that they kind of already have filled.
And not to interrupt, even though there's litigation, this is not.
Right. So the map was drawn. The very gerrymandered map was signed by the governor who promised not to sign it. And so here we are, and we're in court. Multiple organizations are suing for the map because they use the ACS data. Have you guys had the conversation? Because I missed a couple of meetings. Do you guys know about the ACS data?
I don't know.
Okay. So ACS is the American something survey, and that's those big long surveys you get in the mail. And it's like the census, but it's really not. It's only sent out to a much smaller percentage. So about 1 to 2% of voters get captured in the ACS data. And that's what they use to redraw the map. So, as you might imagine, this is horrible, particularly for rural districts. Because if they're only counting 1% of a population for a certain area, they might not get anybody in a certain area, right? Because it's a very, very tiny amount compared to the amount of people we have, as opposed to the census, which uses actual data. But there was some confusion with the law that said that maps has to be drawn by a certain date, but then the law also stated that the census data had to be in by July, and of course, it's still not in. So they took the opportunity to draw a even better district for themselves than us, and said, well, look at this data, we can monkey with this and draw ourselves some really pretty maps. Well, that's what they did, that's what happened. So that's why it's important. There's lots of organizations suing for the maps.
And that is a government survey?
The ACS it's an organization that does the survey. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think it's a government organization. I don't know for a fact. Amy? You guys will find as we start getting closer and closer to the race, I will not be your typical politician. If I don't know, I'm going to say I don't know, but I'll be the first one to tell you I will look it up and get back to you. And I'm not going to say stuff to get elected. I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to lower your taxes. I can't lower your taxes. It's just not possible. I can tell you that I'm not going to vote for any tax increases ever.
Right.
That's what I can do as a House rep. So, the taxes, that's one topic. Education, we need more school choice. I'm going to fight for that. I'm going to fight for people to have more freedom. So Julie mentioned, I put it in the bio, but it's really the basis for everything. I believe in general, people are good. And we just need some basic laws to keep the occasional person who is frustrated and gets out of line. But I'm a sick optimist. I really am. I think people can do better if we give them a chance. I think if we take less money of people's taxes, they will donate more to charities and churches.
Yes.
That's what I think. I think if we get the government out of the way, we're going to be better off. I had one more thing. I didn't know how long. You guys all know me, so I didn't know how long to talk.
You can always consider us practice, right? That's not about
Yeah.
Oh, you're the best.
Yes, and they don't ask easy questions.
Please don't ask easy questions. I can't make that noise, but I'll do whatever I can. Started talking a little bit about freedom. School choice. Freedom to choose your school. There's too much, particularly in Illinois, forcing kids to go to a school when, we have this scholarship program that the current governor is desperately trying to get rid of, and it's just there to help poor kids. Why are we trying to get rid of something like that? I don't understand. Just like I said, get government out of the way.
Help poor kids what, go to public or private school?
Private, yeah. So there's a scholarship program. If you donate to the program, you get it at 75% tax write-off for it. And then that goes out in scholarships to underprivileged kids to charter schools.
50%.
It's 50%.
Meaning the government gets their cut before the money goes out to the
No, it goes directly to the kid. It's not public school money.
Gary, I don't think it would go to charter schools, because that's already a public school, and it's funded by the
Charter schools are public schools?
Yes, charter
Okay.
schools and public schools. It would be a private school or something like that.
Okay, then I understand it incorrectly, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
The-
The charter schools are funded by their local public school district,
Right.
so they're really basically a public school.
Okay.
But they just don't have the teachers doing most of them.
Right. But there are some that we have to pay tuition to, in addition to the public money.
The charters?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that? I'd check on that.
I'm not.
I think
I
that's
would
right.
check on that.
Okay.
I mean, well, public schools, you actually have to pay something to go to. They have some fees.
It's directly to the school?
You know, they charge you for all kinds of activities, and
But
Oh.
not
I mean, you can spend
Elective.
a good bunch of money going to a public school.
It helps kids, the program helps kids pick their school.
I know the program you're talking about, and the teachers union is trying to kill it.
The governor promised to kill it
Yeah.
to the teachers, which, I don't understand why
No,
the
it's
teacher
a
unions are
decent
trying to
program.
take away education from kids. It's appalling. So, I would like some questions though, if you guys have anything.
Can I just prod you for,
Sure.
you said you were in there during the lame duck
Lame duck,
session
yeah.
because you were the guy that I thought of as, let's get somebody in there who, is able to handle it.
Uh-huh.
Tell us some of the crap that you saw. You said that how the sausage was made. Give us some examples of that so that
How
people,
is the pork made?
yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
So, we had an embattled Speaker of the House who was on his way out and about to lose his job. And he was pulling every trick that he could to try and keep his job. So the way the rules are written, every bill goes through his committee and he decides whether or not it gets heard. So what he did was he pushed through 4 bills that the Black Caucus was a huge fan of to try and get their vote. There was an education one, there was a healthcare one, there was the one you probably have heard the most about with the reform the police bill, and one of them that I always forget, education, healthcare, police, I can't remember what it was. And so he released these bills that were horrible. I mean, you've heard them, like I said, the most about the police bill. The healthcare bill takes funding away from hospitals in the underprivileged neighborhoods, and some of them might have to close. We asked for the sponsor to tell us how much this bill was going to cost, the healthcare one. It was over $100 million from our research. The sponsor said that I would like to rule that the fiscal notes, which is the cost of the bill, be deemed irrelevant. And we said, whoa, we want to vote on that. There was a vote. And to a man, that whole side of the aisle said, yes, we think it's irrelevant how much this costs, we want to vote on it. And that happened repeatedly on these bills, on the police bill, on the healthcare bill. Yes?
Public pensions, was that number 4?
No, nothing's happened with pensions at all.
No, but was he spinning? Well, maybe not.
Was it the bill to raise the pension of the Chicago firemen?
No, it's much bigger than that. It was, like I said, it was a big one, like the police, the healthcare,
Big.
education.
Big.
I can look it up. I can let you guys know what it was.
Yeah.
And they all had a cost, and they all were expensive. That there's so many unfunded mandates in the police reform bill. So much money that small police departments have to come up with for cameras. You know,
Guys, we defund the police.
it sounds very much like that. They wanted body cams on every cop.
That's a good thing. Why do you think the police reform bill was bad?
There was some good parts.
Speaking to libertarians.
There were some good parts about it, absolutely.
Well,
But some small police departments that may have 3 or 4 officers,
don't need to exist.
why do they not need to exist? If it was your town, you would certainly not want it to be wiped off the face of the earth.
No, I live in an unincorporated area. We
So
don't
the-
have police officers. No, because a lot of small police departments like that just write tickets to fund themselves.
Right.
Like Bull Valley, you get a ticket for 42 over and 40, and they're ticketing you just so that you can fund the police.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
if a place is so bad that their crime is so bad, they're not having just 3 or 4 police officers. So
But
that is
they
not
still have to buy body cams.
saying that they can't pay to buy body cams because they only have 3 or 4 officers. I don't buy it.
But how are they going to buy the body cameras that are now mandated by the state law? Get more tickets.
More tickets, exactly.
More tickets.
So we should.
More tickets, higher taxes, don't cut the pensions, don't cut the benefits.
Right.
People are gonna pay for it, but,
They could also seize more cash.
yeah, right.
Well,
Seizure.
And that's the same thing is, this just
confiscation.
encourages them not to reform it, than what it needs, with the police, they need reform or they need to be abolished.
Body cameras aren't the answer to reform,
Right.
No, the
are not the answer to
Right.
reform.
The county,
We were
county
controlling
sheriffs,
territory in the parade.
they can take over a much larger area in the
Sure.
county, especially the small counties, the
Right,
little ones.
if you
And
have
they
3 or
can-
4 police
yeah.
officers, what's wrong with the sheriff?
Yeah,
You have 3 or 4 police officers, that's one person.
Well, several
per shift.
villages have
Well-
abolished their cops lately.
yeah.
In my opinion.
We're asking you a
What the
question.
sheriff- Well, the county has their own police, the court system, the prisons, the jails. I mean,
But it's a
so
lot
why
less
not?
now. Because they defunded them and pretty much,
Okay, but they're gonna know the people.
so, yeah.
The-
Eliminate
The
rich
McHenry
people.
County Sheriff is not gonna know the people. They're gonna know if there's
They
a problem,
could.
they're gonna know if they get called for domestic disturbances. Right?
The county sheriff can get called for domestic call just as well as a police officer.
Of course. But that's
So-
gonna fall through the cracks.
Well,
That's-
So
Unincorporated.
Gary, here's my question, so,
Unincorporated.
you're just
That's
pointing
what I
out,
realize. I'm proactive police, not reactive police. I don't want cops to show up after the point. I want them to be there showing that they're around so people stop stuff.
Yeah.
Stop their bad behavior, not reacting to
that's
domestic
what-
violence.
That's what David Brown wants
But-
to think it's gonna
but
happen.
isn't,
Well, it's not gonna happen if they're all in unmarked squads.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but isn't
Well,
the,
that's not good, right?
hey
Absolutely.
Gary, isn't the fundamental point that you're getting to, part of it is, it's taking away local control and centralizing it higher up the chain.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That's the biggest problem. So yeah, you might have a Bull Valley group of misfit cops who are writing tickets just to fund their own thing. But the solution to that isn't, we're gonna have dictates from the state that
Yeah, but okay, so then
this,
why
you know
was
what I
there
mean?
no police union reform? The police unions are the ones that are protecting the bad cops. Was there any police
Why?
union reform?
No.
Police unions are protecting the bad cops.
Right, you're asking me why they passed a bad bill?
It's the Democrats that are in charge.
Because they could.
Not to say the Republicans would pass a good bill either.
And again, I hear what you're saying, and the point is that there's a bunch of stuff in there that's gonna cost more money, not less. And they didn't care how much it cost, and we don't have the money.
I don't buy that we shouldn't spend the money to make government more accountable. That's one way we can spend money, I think.
Well, and that's why it's not defunding the police, it's redirecting.
It's other programs, it's not really.
So-
running the police. You're
so if I
absolutely
could-
100% correct about that, but I
So,
don't know.
so Kelly, if I can play devil's advocate, what I would say is, if you're going to do that, don't make it an unfunded mandate.
right.
You know what I mean?
Where's it coming
Like,
from?
if you're going to make a requirement that's going to cost them money, don't make it an unfunded mandate.
It's only.
Provide the funding,
Mhm.
so that it's at least neutral. You're not dinging the departments, you know what I mean?
I don't agree with
It's not
you.
gonna be neutral.
It's a condition, I'm not saying they should make that mandate.
Right.
I'm saying if you're going to.
I don't agree with the idea that there should be no unfunded mandates.
It doesn't incentivize.
I think that, for example, if you take about environmental conditions, we have to mandate that people not pollute rivers and all those things by building sewer plants. But I don't think the national government or the state government should pay for that. I think the people that use it should pay for it.
Yes.
And that's an unfunded mandate, and I think that's what it ought to be.
So let Bull Valley pay for it,
Local.
not the state tax.
Local.
They have to pay for it because it's an unfunded mandate.
They get to vote. you know.
I have a couple of questions or a couple of points. One is, first of all, government gets a pass because they use modified approval accounting. You're familiar with truth in accounting, I
Oh, yes,
assume.
right.
Right, and thank you, Jim Young, for bringing my attention.
Is that
to
Sheila
this.
Weinberg's outfit?
Yes.
Yeah.
And basically, that gives government a pass in so many ways in terms of financial reporting. They aren't subject to full accrual financial reporting, which private businesses are. I mean, private businesses could never get away with, take the lottery. They would throw people in jail for posting the annuity value as opposed to the cash value of lotteries, but the government doesn't. They get away with it, no problem. Right? So we need to move to some sort of full accrual accounting, so people know how bad the financial situation is in the state. And then I presume you would support moving the pension system to a defined contribution system as opposed to a defined benefit system.
Right.
I mean, because with the current system, you have employees who are now dependent on government for the funding of their pensions. They want to grow government because government's going to pay their pensions, as opposed to if they had a defined contribution system,
Right.
then they would be responsible for their retirement funds, and they might support more rational economic policies to maximize the value of their retirement funds. So I presume you would support a switch to a defined contribution pension system as opposed to a defined benefit system.
Right. And yeah, you're right, 100% right. we are so many steps away from that. You know, starting with amending the Constitution, amending the Constitution and everything else we have to do before we get to that point. You know, and there has to be a way to explain to people that that's what we want to do, but we're not taking away grandma's current pension. Right. We're not putting grandma and grandpa on the street and that kind of thing. That would be ridiculous.
Or if we grandfathered people
Yes.
in 20 years ago when the conversation began,
That
we
would
wouldn't
be,
have the mess we have now.
that would have been a great start. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying is, but we were overruled in the courts that we could modify it.
Well, right, and then you get into the whole
Constitution.
situation, it's like,
That state constitution. You ever spent time in the state
We are gonna have a constitutional amendment on the ballot.
Really?
It's to,
Because it opens everything up. So it's like,
Make
it
the,
brings us, you know.
public employees unions
I
invulnerable.
know, but
It's like, well, that's why, isn't that that's one of the reasons.
It's gonna be next November, not this November, next November.
I was going to kind of tell a joke
That it didn't come up with.
right.
about transparency.
So one of the bills that failed back in January during veto session was set to, the federal government in the COVID bill, the CARES Act, said that certain businesses do not have to pay full taxes. They waive some taxes because of COVID. The governor, our governor, and the governor of New York, several governors, tried to opt out of that plan. That would cost businesses in Illinois an extra $1 billion. Well, we managed to stop it, but it's still lingering. You know, it popped its ugly head right back up as soon as all the bills died. When I left office, they came right back up. So there's $1 billion out there sitting there going after all businesses that they're trying to take away their money. That was already built into the CARES Act. Several states have opted out of it. That's not pro-business.
I'm sorry, and this is.
It's called decoupling, and we're decoupling from one aspect of the COVID bill. That had,
The CARES Act.
yeah, right.
What was, you know, there was like so many aspects of that. What was this particular aspect?
This gave a break, a tax break to businesses from the feds, and then they
What?
tried.
If it's Fed money, why are the states opting out of it?
Exactly.
Correct.
So the
what's
feds
their-
can collect the taxes instead of so the state can collect the taxes instead of the feds.
Yeah,
There's $1 billion.
they're penalizing the states. The federal government is penalizing the states indirectly because they're basically taking the money that would be the states for themselves, or
No,
Yes,
something.
yes.
I don't know what
They're
the-
saying that businesses cannot write off collectively $1 billion
Oh,
in
yes.
the state.
I'm not sure exactly what the thing is, but I think the mechanism is
Oh, yes, I
that
am aware of that.
the
Yes.
state revenue code is connected directly to the federal government. So that their definition of state income tax is the same as the federal. They start with that and then they make some adjustments, but they start with it. So if the federal government gives them a break that lowers their income, then it
Yes.
would lower the state income
Well, no,
tax. So if they decoupled it, that would.
It's not
the
an
state-
income tax. It's a business tax. It's not on individuals, it's on businesses.
Well, there's a corporate income tax too.
Right.
And
That's what I'm saying, but yeah.
So I'm just saying that the way it works is if the federal government reduces the definition of income somehow, that would also reduce the income to the state. And so if they
It was a federal tax that the feds were saying small businesses could keep.
it's not the tax, it's the income.
Revenue.
Revenue, yeah.
The income, no, it's the net income.
Well,
Okay.
When you
business-
start your state return, the first thing you do is put down your gross, your gross income
Uh,
or your net income.
What? Individual return?
Well, on the individual return, it's that way, and it's also that way on the corporate return. It starts out with the amount of money that the federal government claims is your income.
Right, okay.
All right, so if the federal government lowers your income by giving you bigger tax credits or something, that would automatically lower the state income tax.
Well,
Right.
don't you start with adjusted gross income on the Illinois return?
Right.
Okay.
That's right. It
And
goes
the same
over.
thing, the same thing is true on the corporate return.
Adjusted gross income is less.
So it's already in there.
So if they've lowered the income, the adjusted gross income of the corporation, it would cut the state's revenue.
Right, and that's not how this works,
And
and
so-
I can't explain it to you correctly, so let me get back to you.
All right,
Because I understand what you're saying.
all right.
That's not my understanding of the program.
All right,
So-
well, I'm just speculating, because that's a mechanism that would actually work on decoupling.
Yeah, right,
I like the states' rights idea. I'm a fan of that.
right.
Separate.
Well, local control, that's what I started out, we were talking about small police departments, local control.
Yeah.
So then it's 10,000 or 20,000 people voting for somebody instead of 1 million in a county voting for somebody.
Yeah.
I understand those people are responsible to the voters, but not as many of them when they have 1 million, when a 500,000 is a winning vote instead of 5,000.
Yeah.
You know, there was 50,000 votes in Skillicorn's district, and it was won by 2,000 votes.
Wow.
Hey Gary, quick
Yes.
question. How long were some of these bills and how long did you have to review them?
Oh.
Well, I think most of y'all know that Illinois allows a shell game called the shell bill, and so they introduced the law states that the bill has to be read 3 times before it can be voted on.
Excuse me, what do you mean by red? What does that get verbally, or what does it mean to have a bill be read?
So those rules are set by the speaker. So in this case, they read the title and that's about it. So
They read the
it's
title
worse
3
than that.
times and then we vote.
Wait, it's worse than that, you guys. Wait, it's worse. So they create a bill that says, I'm taking this piece of legislation and I'm striking the word the and adding the word the. That's all that happens. And then it is voted on. And then it has to be read a second time. And it is voted on. And it is passed. Then the third time, someone will create an amendment that says this replaces everything after the enacting clause, and this will become the bill. Let's vote on it. We read it 3 times.
It's in the record.
Wow.
Right?
Yes, it's in the record that they've read it the first 2
Didn't
times.
read that version 3 times.
Of course not.
Oh my God.
That's how they do the shell bill game. That's how you see, if you ever watch legislation on ILGA, like when they do the video of session, they'll say, I mean, you guys may have remembered Mike Boss throwing the big wad of paper up in the air. It was an insurance bill. They had a couple hours to read a bill that was hundreds of pages because it had gone through the process. Shell bill this, it changes, replaces the word the with the word the. Yes. They have the majority, it's voted on, it's yes. Happens again. Second reading. Replaces the word the with the word the. Yes. I amend that bill, and it says, if I remember the wording correctly, it says, this amendment replaces everything after the enacting clause, and something, I think there's a little bit more after that. And then so, the part is all gone, and the amendment is everything from scratch except the title. Sometimes you'll see bills that you guys remember concealed carry permits about 8 years ago? So that bill started out, if I remember it correctly, I think it had something to do with ATMs, automatic teller machines. And they amended it and amended it and amended it, and it became the concealed carry bill. But the title kept floating along with concealed carry permits. With ATMs.
So another way of thinking about it is it's a bait and switch system?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I explained this to a lobby friend of mine in Texas. She was blown away. It's not. It's not. And the new legislation, all these people came in and said, I didn't support Madigan, all that kind of stuff. And they turned around and voted for virtually the exact same rules in the House. I don't follow the Senate as closely, but it's virtually the same rules that say that the Speaker runs the committee that handles all bills that come. They go through there first. So if the Speaker doesn't want to bring them forward, they're never brought forward. There's tons of good bills out there by lots of good legislators, but they don't get even read or heard. You know, I was just yesterday, the Senator DeWitt, McConkey, and Wilcox had a town hall talking about legislation, and they were talking about a bunch of the good bills they introduced, and right at the bottom it said, none of these have been introduced or made it out of committee.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have it in the state, but in the national government, you can have a petition to release a bill if enough people sign it.
We don't have that, otherwise we would be doing it.
Too much power.
Right, it's all in the Speaker's hands. And everybody acts like we've gotten rid of the king and we gave the new person all the king's power. So we didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So,
Same old.
I'm not
Isn't he
doing
term limited?
no.
There aren't term limits in Illinois at all.
I thought the speaker was term limited. I thought
For
that.
30
Correct.
years?
No.
The Speaker? No.
Is that why he wasn't speaker for 2 years? Remember that?
No, that was when he finally overstepped.
Yeah.
I thought that was a bill they started introducing though for some
Term
state
limits?
leadership. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Did it not go through at all?
Yeah.
Then? I can't remember if it did or not.
No. We got to get a few more good people who are willing to vote regardless of how nasty they are. So, like I said, I was down there. You guys know me. I've been around. I'm into politics and stuff like that. And it's these county chairs, who are the people who appoint replacements when somebody resigns, contacted me, asked me if I wanted to go serve that position, serve it out. Of course. I mean, if anything, for the experience, right? And then I was down there.
You did it for the pension.
I got it for the pension. I'll tell you
3
what.
years of pension must be a whole
There
lot.
was not even a salary, by the way. That's why a lot of the legislators that lost resigned, because Pritzker wouldn't pay them, because their salary period ended technically on the 31st of December, and there never's been, in recent memory, there's never been a legislative session in January until they swear in the new legislators. Veto session's always been in November, December, after the election. That didn't happen, so they wanted to pass a bunch of junk. Madigan wanted to try and shore up the vote and be speaker again, and that's why we had all these we came back and just voted on bad bills. There was nothing positive that came out of that. He was just trying to get reelected. They call it the 4 pillars of the Black Caucus, and he was just trying to appease them to vote for him. And anyway, so there was no pay. That's why they quit. And you know who checked out long before then, but he ran off and is doing Jeep tours in Arizona. So I don't know. I was really disappointed.
So was I.
So were we.
Yeah, I bet. I'll tell you, I'm never going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what I really believe, because I'm too old to remember any lies.
Good.
I'm just saying. Yeah.
Couple of questions.
That's good.
Ballot access laws.
Yes. Yes.
Do you support liberalization of ballot access laws?
Tell me more.
It's 25,000 for us to get candidates on the ballot.
You're talking about separate parties? Absolutely.
Okay. 25,000 signatures it takes just to get our statewide candidates on the ballot.
Yeah.
That covers nothing down ticket.
Right.
Okay. U.S. House, last year I was on the ballot. I worked hard to get on the ballot with 1,600 ballot signatures. That was only due to a U.S. district court judge order. It would usually be 16,000 signatures. There is because it's a year and 2, we're going to need 5,000 signatures to get on my district, which is horrible enough. In Virginia, where I moved from in 2019, it's 1,000 signatures to get on the ballot for the U.S. House of Representatives. It's 5,000 signatures, but that's special dispensation because it's a year ending in 2.
Right.
Because there were over 400,000 votes in the 6th District U.S. House race last year, that would mean normally would take 20,000 ballot signatures in what is, of course, going to be a highly gerrymandered. Oh, it's not the worst, but the 6th District is highly gerrymandered, kind of a reverse question mark. Lord only knows what it's going to look like next time around. But then on top of it, you know, you're talking to get on the ballot, 3,000 ballot signatures to get on the ballot for state house. In Virginia, it's 125. If you could be looking at probably double that, 5,000 to 6,000 ballot signatures to get on the ballot for state senate. In Virginia, it's 250. So you know, there is no state that has run more for its elites and less for its people than Illinois. And the politicians in this state have dug huge moats around themselves to keep everyone at bay. So one is we need greatly liberalized ballot access laws. The other thing is we need some initiatives and referendum we need initiatives and referendum in the state. We need the legislature has too many conflicts in ballot access and in finance. There are things that they have a natural conflict of interest, which people need to go around the legislature if necessary. But my understanding is in this state, first of all, there is no INR with respect to statutes at all. And constitutional amendments are legal, but they have to be single issue, is my understanding. And then there have been a number over the years that have been kicked off by the Supreme Court, is my understanding. So it's ridiculously difficult to get constitutional INR. So essentially this state has no INR, it has horrible ballot access laws that keeps competition off the ballot. We have usually about half of state legislative districts with one candidate, no challengers on the ballot. And they are, in Springfield, they've been absolutely impervious to any sort of change because, of course, Madigan was there for 30-ish years, and any sort of ballot access legislation immediately got discarded by Madigan, right? So where do you stand on ballot access and initiatives and referendum?
If you wanted to run against me, I mean, you should get exactly the same number of signatures as I do, and be on the ballot right next to me.
But would you support ranked choice voting?
I'm not sure, because that one leaves it open if you have like 5 or 7 people, right?
Well,
as opposed to a runoff. I prefer the runoff system like they have in Georgia.
Well, but that has very low turnout with you know, and it requires a second election and has very low turnout for that
Second
election.
election's costly.
Yes.
Second election.
So I would ask you to consider
Okay.
ranked choice as a combination solution to liberalize ballot access laws, but also to allow ranked choice voting. And
Is
as a combination.
Is that the thing where, let's say there's 3 candidates, you basically order the ones that you would vote for, let's say there's 4, and you oppose one of them, so maybe you only are going to affirmatively vote for 3, but you have a first place, a second place, and a third place. And if your first place doesn't get enough votes, then your vote is essentially for the second place candidate.
What happens is they look at the results. If one candidate does not have a majority, I would call it first choice, not first place. If a candidate does not have a majority of first choice votes, then they look at the first choice votes. The last place candidate is eliminated, and people who have cast the second choice, their votes are transferred to their second choice candidate. And this elimination process is continued until a candidate has a majority of non-exhausted.
And isn't one of the benefits to that it eliminates what people are scared of, the so-called spoiler effect?
Exactly. It eliminates the so-called spoiler effect
Okay.
of minor party and independent candidates.
Okay. So that people on the left who might want to vote like for the Green Party wouldn't feel guilty about it because they don't want the big bad Republican to win. Or people on the right wouldn't feel guilty for voting Libertarian because they don't want the big bad Democrat to win. Basically,
Exactly.
This would solve that problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
It would allow people to vote their conscience without helping to elect the candidate they like least.
Got it.
So on the surface, it makes sense. Let me do a little more research before I give you 100% commitment.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got one question along this line. Do you know how that went down in New York? New York started to implement this
The
past
primary, yeah.
election, right?
You have to, but there may have been poor administration of it.
Oh.
It's not, I heavily support, strongly support ranked choice voting. I think it's great.
I
For
100%
minor
agree with you.
for minor party candidates, it is an outstanding thing. I don't understand why people in a minor party would be opposed to it. Now, there can be, I think there were some election administration problems in New York that are separate from the mechanics of ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
I almost thought in the back of my mind that it may have been, there may have been motivation for that also.
There may have been, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Part of the problem was that there were 15 candidates in the Democrat primary, so it makes the
Oh,
process of the
yeah.
math, you know, a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
That's
But
what
yeah,
we're trying to do.
that whole,
With the computational powers these days, it should be, there was something else wrong there
That's a good point.
that dragged this out.
It's not because most voters are low information voters and will only vote for the one choice anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That might be part of
think
the
No,
problem.
I don't know how people voted, but I bet the vast majority of people voted for more than one candidate.
Can I ask you about drugs?
I don't have any
Trump's?
nothing.
What are you looking for, Jim? Give me a couple days.
Yeah, I need something, I need to get higher. It seems to me like the legalization of marijuana in the state was a step forward, but they've made it too damned expensive so that it's not gonna drive out the bad guys.
Right.
So we need to lower the taxes or whatever it is on the local cannabis people. We also need to open it up to more vendors and not make it such a crony.
Oh, yeah, right.
um,
Here was my argument with that
Also,
passing.
less regulations to lower the actual cost of the marijuana, not just the taxes.
We need both access and lower cost and regulations.
Yeah, that was tax on the growers, that was a tax on the vendors, that was a tax on the buyer. I mean, everybody was getting taxed.
$250,000.
Yeah, licensing or something, it was like
Licensing.
6 figures.
Right. So
So you're not gonna drive the black market out when you've got that kind of
Right.
cost built into the system.
here's my personal concern with this. I went to school in Colorado. I had a lot of friends there. And when they legalized marijuana there, a lot of 20-ish, 20 to 25-year-olds moved there because they could start smoking pot legally. And they did not make it so insanely pricey like we did, of course. And the problem with that, in my opinion, is they moved away from their support system, their family life. They may have been fighting with mom and dad, but they at least had a roof over their head and a meal. And they moved out there. And this is my envision from stories I've heard from friends. It's not fact and it's not data. It's just anecdotal. But say three people moved out there from different parts. They get together, they all get jobs, and they get an apartment together. One of them starts oversleeping and gets fired. Now they can't afford the apartment. Now, all three of them are out on the street because you
Not
gotta
during
pay.
the pandemic.
Well, that's true. I'm talking about before that.
This is a moratorium.
But wait,
Solving homelessness in one
So-
step.
so-
Okay?
but the underbridge population exploded in Colorado when they first legalized it. It was, you could not drive over a bridge without someone hearing it that was sleeping
And
underneath
how
it.
long did that last?
It's still lasting. It's still going on. I think that it should be legalized federally.
Well, that's
And
true,
then-
but we also need to have it locally, because the feds are not gonna do it too fast.
Feds are gonna tax.
And the fact is that we're not the first, so everybody isn't gonna flock to our state.
Right, the more states that have this,
Yeah,
the less.
the more of
Maybe
it.
Right.
people would flood back to Illinois
There
for
is-
pot if it was cheaper,
Right.
because Colorado is cheaper for pot, and you can grow your own, right?
You can grow your own in Colorado, that's good, right? But again, if these people are losing their jobs and losing the roof over
You're
their head.
just stereotyping, come on.
But how is that the government's business or my business if someone chooses to lose their job because they don't get up because they choose to use too much marijuana or they choose to have a lifestyle that constitutes maybe laziness? Why is that my problem if someone becomes homeless? I care for them, but why does someone wants to do that as an illegal adult? That's their choice. It's
That's
sad,
100%.
but why does that matter in Illinois then if something happened like that, like it did in Colorado? That's an adult's choice to choose to lose their house. Nobody makes you lose the house. Nobody makes you lose the job unless it's a government shutdown. We legalize weed and we make the regulations next to nothing where people move here and then all of a sudden they don't have a job because they choose a different lifestyle.
And then-
So be it. That's, to me, natural selection for people's behavior. I mean, I think several people in this room use marijuana. None of us have lost a job from it, but people will lose a job from it who would have lost a job probably anyways from having maybe bad morals or poor work ethics. So encouraging a little bit with cheaper weed, to me, that's not really encouraging it. It's just someone's finding an excuse to not work.
It may be an excuse, and I know functioning alcoholics, functioning pot smokers who go to work every day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But again, you put people out of a house, then you raise crime, and I'm sorry.
Well, nobody put them out of the house. They put themselves out of the house. Because if you choose to not go to work, you put yourself out of the house. The government did. You just used the circumstance the government gave you.
Colorado
Right.
didn't make these people lose their house.
No,
That's
they
true.
didn't.
It's 100% accurate.
Colorado didn't do anything. They just looked at that circumstance and someone that maybe was raised in an environment that didn't constitute good work ethic, they look at the situation and go, wow, I can get high, I can get help for maybe the mental health treatment I can't afford because our healthcare is
Sure.
too
Absolutely.
expensive, and now I lost my job, but that's not the government's fault.
No.
The government shouldn't feel bad for it, and taxpayers shouldn't feel bad for it because they didn't result in it. So I'm a little concerned why you have the thinking of someone losing their job as being an excuse not to deregulate marijuana, because it's, at the end of the day, it's not anybody's business except the person who didn't go to work that day or the person who chose to use marijuana too much. It has nothing to do with the government. It has nothing to do with you if you voted to deregulate. It has nothing to do with any taxpayer or voter. It's purely on that person choosing not to go to work, or it's purely on them if they choose to go to work and then they're, a functioning weed
Right.
smoker, or functioning alcoholic.
Right. And if they moved to Colorado instead of Illinois before it was legalized, and they move away from their support structure, they don't have family.
You're assuming they have a support
Right.
structure.
I'm assuming they do. They're more likely to than not. You fight with mom and dad. You move away to Colorado. I'm gonna go.
How significant a problem is this?
It's a huge problem. The DUIs.
Then why don't
The
we ban
DUIs go up
alcohol?
massively in Colorado.
You have statistics on this?
Because
Yeah.
alcohol creates homelessness, right?
Yeah.
Guys, we're gonna need to wrap this up at 9, so if anyone has any other questions for Gary,
I'll be around.
Well, I was
you can
gonna
ask
You're
him
not
now.
going
It's not 9 o'clock yet, we still have, I think, about 5 or 10 minutes.
I was gonna ask him to,
Anyone has another question?
I was gonna ask him to support deregulating other drugs, but I think that sounds futile.
It sounds what?
Futile.
Federally, I'm 100% behind the federal. And again,
That's a cop-out.
Sure
Why is
is. Because in the States, they're banned.
Getting good practice already tonight?
yeah, of course.
Good. That's what we want to have.
We never claimed this was, it's not an easy crowd.
Do you think institutions of higher education should be subsidized by government?
No.
So, community colleges and full 4-year institutions should become private institutions in Illinois.
Right.
Good, thank you.
That's a softball. Come on.
All right,
It's not-
any other questions?
It's not for a lot of people. Yes, and here it is, but it's not for a lot of people.
really is. I mean, there was discussion in the House a year or two ago about we're losing students at the state universities. We need to give them more money. My head exploded. Right. That's not fixing the problem. and they spend so much money. And we got kids. We need K through 12. You know? We can talk about defunding that later.
Do you think the college football playoff should be expanded?
Asking the tough questions now.
I don't know, you have to read
Are you a cat person or a dog person?
I'm a dog person. She's the cat person.
Oh.
And he was asking him.
Oh, yeah.
See, he looks like a
Question
dog.
first.
I love all animals.
There you go.
We're sorry.
Gary, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're sorry we didn't bring a baby for you to kiss.
You guys know, I'm not going anywhere. I'll still be coming to these meetings. We got almost a year until the election, till the primaries. I'm not. I'll be around. Ask me any questions. I'm here for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.